Chapter 131, Map. The group arrived in Igona, a beast folk city near the mountain range they crossed, and met the mayor there to tell him about the portal connection plans. As Sophia had no intention of explaining anything, though, she went to get the king from the capital to have him do it instead. What a fun day! The group was back in their cottage, where Sophia let out a comfortable sigh. I have the feeling that father would disagree with you there. Anna awkwardly scratched her cheek in return. He already looked tired when you brought him over, but even more so after he finished explaining the plan to the mayor. He'll be fine. The blonde smiled at her. Pay him a quick visit tomorrow, and you'll see the happiest man in existence. What did you do? The princess raised an eyebrow. I gave him a very nice gift that he'll get to enjoy tomorrow. Is it okay to have a bad feeling about this? Anna looked at Ari next to her for confirmation. I'm glad that even you noticed. The jaguar smiled at her. Your track record with the king speaks a rather clear language, but let us hear what good you did for him. Have you noticed how his hair is getting thinner? Yeah. She nodded. It began on the day he met you. There's just no way Anna hadn't caused him any hair loss before. Sophia had no way of refuting her claim completely, but she didn't believe her to be the root cause. Okay, you got me there. The jaguar scratched her cheek in return. I have been a bit of a menace before, yes. Anna sounded almost proud. So, what did you do? Used some kind of magic to make it all fall out at once, so he gets over it? I may be feisty, but I'm not a monster. The blonde glared at her. In fact, I did the exact opposite. I used a little bit of healing magic on his hair roots. They'll be stronger than they've ever been. When he wakes up tomorrow, his hair will probably be twice as thick and grown all the way down to his waist. Wow. Ari seemed impressed. Well, I think you should have asked him for consent beforehand, but it's still a lovely gesture. I definitely have to head home tomorrow. Anna's eyes were sparkling. I need to see father with long and luscious hair. Field trip tomorrow. The blonde smiled at her. Speaking of, what are we going to do here? She pointed at the pile of paper lying on the coffee table in front of the sofas in the living room. It seemed about 51 by 1 meter big sheets stacked on top of each other. Father really gave you a complete map of the kingdom, huh? The princess looked at the topmost paper and noticed how a small part of her kingdom was drawn on it. It seems we have a puzzle on our hand, as well. Ari joined her and glanced at the sheets below it, showing other landmarks while also lining up with the edges of some of the other sheets. It will likely form a massive full map once we've laid out and arranged everything. I'm glad we'll get a detailed picture by it, though. The blonde didn't see an issue in it being so big. I'd say it's time for a map room. We have to hang it somewhere to get the best overview of it. Well, it's definitely no satellite map. Sophia had created a small white room inside her domain where they put the map fragments on the wall after having puzzled them together. While looking at the whole picture, Steph only scratched her cheek while trying to understand what she was seeing. Quite true. The blonde nodded with a questioning expression while tilting her head to the side. For the most part, the map was understandable enough, but the details were nowhere near as close as the sisters were used to. It looked a lot more artsy, as well. Rather than fully colored, it was primarily shades of brown as well as points of interest like cities, rivers, lakes, mountain ranges, and the like that had an actual drawing next to the rough shape of the landmarks. What's a satellite? Ari looked confused. Don't worry about it. Sophia smiled at her. It's something from our old world. Yeah. Steph nodded. It's something humans created and sent into space. From there, it takes pictures of the entire planet and sends them back. That way, we know exactly how continents look and what's on them in great detail. Your humans sent something into space? The jaguar got loud. Your world is crazy. True. The sisters and Chloe agreed with her. They decided not to elaborate on the reason why they agreed, though. There are some things this world is kind of a step down, huh? Steph wasn't sure how to feel about that. The quality of living here is surreal, in the best of ways, but modern quality of life has some things left to desire. The issue is that one of them can negatively influence the other, though. Sophia also had mixed feelings. Makes you lazy, too. That is a very fair point. Also, we have magic here. It's just a matter of creativity to create or recreate all kinds of comfort features. Once more people get these stupid artificial elements limitations of just being able to use one or two of them, like just fire or just water, out of their heads, things will become interesting. I'm sure there's a way to create super detailed maps with magic in one way or another. Magic is the bestest. The dog girl agreed with her bottom line. Well, anyway, it's still understandable, so it's no issue. She looked at the map again. So, where should we go first? To answer that, I first need to know where we're in relation to things. Sophia scanned every inch of the map while she was getting increasingly confused. We're about here. Ari walked over next to her and roughly pointed at the middle of the map. You can see Igona, the city we just left, and the mountain range right next to that, too. Thank you very much. The blonde smiled at her before continuing to orient herself on the map. How wrong would I be if I said that is the capital? She pointed a bit to the left of the area the jaguar showed her. That is indeed the capital. She nodded. It even says Terego above it, you know? Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure. Sophia scratched her cheek. It doesn't say capital, after all. What's a Terego in the first place? Terego is the name of our capital. Oh. Her expression got only more awkward. Gee, good to know. Girl, you lived there for half a year. Ari got loud. Maya, where's your place? Sophia completely ignored her and glanced at her girlfriend instead. You remember that it was close to the monster country, right? Yup. She nodded. Try to find that, then. It's pretty clearly marked, so even you should find it. You overestimate my capabilities here. The blonde had a bad feeling about it. Just give it a try. Sophia studied the map for a few minutes. It's been described as a dead zone by the beast folk, so I get the distinct feeling that the big area on the far left, the one littered with crosses and skulls, might be it. Good job. The cat girl reacted by clapping her hands. The name of my hometown won't do anything for you, but I'm sure you can still find it regardless. I believe in you. I like the teacher roleplay you do during the night every now and then a lot more than this. Sophia wasn't sure how to feel getting a regular lecture from her. Me, too. Maya enthusiastically nodded. And now I know what we're going to do tonight. Hearing that, Steph's eyes started sparkling as she looked at Chloe. Sounds fun. The fox girl liked the plan. Ari? Sure. The jaguar smiled at her enthusiastic-looking girlfriend. It's rare that you start the horny, but I approve. Maya gave the blonde a thumbs up before pointing at the map again. So, where is it? Let's see. The capital is that way, so it should be on this side of the monster country. She tried her best to narrow it down. There are a couple of places marked with humans, so that probably indicates their settlements? I distinctly remember those being relatively close to your home. Her expression turned a little twitchy for a moment. There's a place called Remote Outpost Romont close to them. Sophia paused for a moment. That does sound kind of familiar. Yay! The cat girl was clapping again. It sounds familiar, because that is my home. I'm the best. The blonde was quite proud of herself. I wouldn't go that far. Ari wasn't entirely convinced. Still, it's good that you remembered the name of your girlfriend's hometown. Or at least recognized it when you read it. Cut me some slack. She started pouting. Afterward, the group continued to give Sophia some more geography lessons in the hope something would stick in the end. They had little hope of it succeeding, as they knew that it wasn't one of her talents, but they were still willing to try. While doing so, the blonde also found an interesting-looking area with many lakes and rivers that weren't too far away from their current location. The others also got curious and decided to go there next. Chapter 132, Skipping. The group got a map of the entire kingdom from the king and studied it to see where they were and what interesting places could be explored. While they were at it, they also gave the directionally challenged tiger, the blonde one, a geography lesson. It went about as expected, but she still managed to find Maya's hometown on the map, to the surprise of many, including herself. Let's go. Having studied the map and decided on a destination, the group got ready on the following day, and that made Steph quite excited. The art on the map looked like a water park with all the lakes and whatnot, so it's going to be awesome. Do you two know anything about that place? Sophia looked at the royal couple. The area is called the Great Lakes of Gaiva. Ari nodded. The Great Lakes part should be obvious, and Gaiva is the name of the city closest to them. I've never been there, but it's a popular sightseeing location. Anna added some detail. If I remember correctly, Father was a big fan because it generates tons of tax money. You love to hear it. Sophia liked Menzer's reasoning. It seems like we got something to look forward to. It's this way, by the way. Maya pointed to her right. It's south from us, so we have to go that way. You know me so well. The blonde smiled at her. I was about to ask in which direction I have to throw the portal stone into. I figured as much. The catgirl knew that there was no way she could have found out the direction on her own. By the way, how do you know how much power and magic you have to use for the stone to travel the distance you want? Chloe tilted her head. According to the scale on the map, the place is about 200 kilometers away, and you'd need to throw it twice to stay within your detection range, right? So, how do you meter that? An excellent question. Sophia scratched her cheek. That means she has no idea, either. Steph knew that reaction from her sister. It's all about feeling. She raised her voice a little. Sure, I have no idea how much force or magic I need to throw a stone 100 kilometers away from me. It's filled to the brim with magic, though. Thanks to that, I can use my detection magic to track it flying through the air. This girl has built-in radar, the dog girl couldn't believe it. Well, not really, but the result is similar-ish enough. Pretty much. Sophia smiled at her. I should be able to influence it in case I overshoot it. Undershooting, as long as there's no one to it, isn't a problem in the first place. Because of that, I'll take it easy for the time being. I mean, it's not an issue if we have to take multiple stops in between, isn't it? Fair enough. Chloe saw no flaw in her logic. All right. The blonde looked at the stone in her hand and lightly threw it into the air a couple of times to get a better feeling of it. Afterward, she turned in the direction Maya had pointed in earlier and got ready to throw it. Imitating a baseball player, she then launched the stone into the sky and watched it disappear from view almost instantly. So? Steph got curious about it. It's still flying. The short tiger shrugged. I mean, it's quite some distance, so it can take a minute or some more. Ah, that's true. And we have touchdown. A couple of moments later, Sophia clapped her hands. It seems like it fell a little short and landed around 50 kilometers away from here. Saying so, she opened another portal in front of them. Let's have a look. The tiger made the portal see-through, which immediately killed her enthusiasm. Would you look at that, another green plane. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. Disappointed or not, the group still stepped through the portal to continue their journey on the other side. Let's explore a little longer before we do the next skip. Steph wanted to check out whether or not there was anything of interest around. Sure. The others had nothing against the plan. By the way, Sophia? While they were walking through the field, Anna eventually addressed her fellow tiger. What's up? She looked back at her. Back when we decided to go traveling again, you told me that you have a plan on how to pump magic into your domain while walking around here. Have I missed it, or have you forgotten about it? Ah. Sophia stopped in her tracks. Thanks for reminding me. She had definitely forgotten about it already. So? The princess tilted her head. Let me show you. Smiling at the tall tiger, the blonde moved her tail around so that the tip was near her face. Afterward, she hovered both her hands around it before creating a portal between them, which then swallowed the tip of her tail. Staring at it for a few seconds, Sophia then moved her tail around a little bit to make sure the portal stayed connected to the tip, before having it resume its default reverse S-like shape behind her. Okay? Anna looked quite confused as she stared at the pink and purple sphere attached to the end of the blonde's tail. From now on, I'll use that portal to continuously transport my magic into the domain while regenerating it here at the same time. This way, I'll stay mobile, don't have to go back and forth, and also have all my other limbs unoccupied. Oh, I see. The tall tiger finally understood. Too bad it's useless for me, because my regeneration isn't fast enough. Yeah, that's unfortunately true. She nodded. This is only useful for me, Chloe, and Steph. She then looked at the duo in question. Is there any interest in donating to the domain? Of course, you can use all the magic for your own projects. I'm happy as long as the domain grows. Let's go. The couple was rather supportive of the idea. Awesome. Enthusiastically clapping her hands, the blonde then created 2 more portals, which the two then placed into their tails. As the portal needed to have contact with their actual tails and not just the fluff around it, they had to push it in quite a bit, especially Chloe. On the plus side, thanks to that, it wasn't even visible on them. Compared to Sophia's tail, which had gotten a little distracting now that it had a sparkly orb attached to it, they looked completely normal. Having taken care of that and successfully established a connection to the domain to constantly supply great amounts of magic to it, the group continued walking once more to see if the green plane would lead to anything interesting at all. Is there something special about those Great Lakes? While they were walking around, Maya tried to kill time and got curious about their destination. What makes them great, and why are they popular with tourists? An excellent question. Sophia also wanted to know more about it. For one, lake areas are always popular. Anna took an educated guess. I can get behind that. The blonde had no issues with that explanation. Those also always were my favorite spots to take a break when we traveled towards the capital. True. Maya also agreed with her. The biggest lake there apparently is so big that you can't see from one side to another, giving off the feel you're actually at the sea. The beaches are supposedly rather pretty, too. As the actual sea is nowhere close, it's only natural that it became a popular alternative. Oh. The sisters liked the sound of that. Gaiva itself, the city near the lakes, is supposed to be quite the attraction, too. Ari added some more detail. They cashed all in on the water theme, and many canals go through it all over the place. You can actually travel to most places inside the city by small boats, or so I've heard. That sounds fun. Chloe joined the conversation. Let's all go on a boat ride together. Do you like boats? Anna tilted her head. No idea. The pink fox shrugged. I've never been on one, so I can't say for sure. In my old life, I basically never went outside, and here, while traveling with Faye, I don't think I've ever seen one. Let's go. Steph immediately raised her arm. Now that you mention it, I've never been on a boat, either. The princess scratched her cheek. There aren't any places around the capital that have boats, after all. Same. Ari nodded. Not even on a river? Or going fishing on a pond? The dog girl raised her voice. No, the royal couple shook their heads. You two are way more sheltered princesses than I thought you were. Literally, I want to add. She got even louder after hearing this. Your childhoods must have been so boring. They had nothing to say in their defense. Do you remember when you caught that massive fish and capsized the boat we were in when you tried to reel it in? Sophia lightly rolled her eyes while smiling at her sister. We should go fishing again. Steph got even more motivated. I want to catch a sea monster. Being in a different world only made her more extreme. Though, that might be difficult in a lake. I wonder if any big things live in there, too. Ahaha. The blonde could only chuckle. Well, I'm not sure about the extent of that, but going fishing again in itself sounds fun. Great. It was good enough for her. Fishing trip with everyone. Having decided on a plan of what to do once they arrived at their destination, the group picked up the pace for a little bit longer before deciding that it was time for another portal skip as there was nothing of interest around them. Chapter 133, Lake City. On their way towards the lake area the group found on the map, Sophia came up with a new way of transporting excess magic into the domain by attaching a portal to her tail and leaving it active the entire time. While walking, Steph also found out that Chloe, Anna, and Ari had never been on a boat before and decided that it was time to change it. She also suggested that everyone should go on a fishing trip together while they were at it. By the way, I don't think I have to ask, but the Lake City will also be getting a portal, right? The group had skipped some more distance and were only 20 kilometers away from their destination when Sophia got curious about the work part of their trip. Absolutely. Anna nodded a couple of times. It's one of the more important places, too. I figured as much. The blonde just wanted to make sure. I guess Menzer will be kidnapped again today. Kingnapped. Steph corrected her. True. Oh, can I go and get father this time? Anna suddenly raised her voice. I need to see his new hair if your magic worked out the way you told us. Oh, that will be fun. Sophia reacted with a big smile. I'm more interested in Kira's reaction. Ari's priorities were on something else. Walking for around another hour, the group eventually arrived at the top of a small hill, which gave them a good overview of the surrounding area. Wow! From their position, they were able to see the lakes and the city, which made Sophia quite excited. Beginning from the foot of the hill and continuing all the way over the horizon, there were 3 massive lakes. They were divided by 3 strips of land with a road on each, which led to a city sandwiched in between those lakes. It almost seemed like it was built on an island, and the land bridges were added later. The city itself, though obviously nowhere near as big as the capital, was quite sizable, too. Just as Ari had mentioned before, a significant portion of it was connected by waterways rather than regular roads. Those channels were connected to the lakes and could also be used to go from one body of water to another without needing to go on land. The few roads inside Gaiva were connected with bridges over the canals to make traveling on foot a little easier. Many boats were rowing through the canals while the regular streets were bustling with people, as well. It being popular was quite true. Even though it wasn't summer yet, the beautiful white beaches of the lakes closest to the city were also filled with people. From the looks of it, the sisters weren't alone with their fishing idea, either. All the lakes had a couple of boats floating on them, as well, with some of them having people with fishing poles on them. We're absolutely going to rent a boat before we leave this place. Steph was also looking forward to their stay. Let's buy one. The blonde was even more into it. That works for me. Why do you want to buy a boat? Chloe tilted her head. Because I want a water world in my domain. Sophia was thinking big. This place looks amazing, and I want a massive lake area in my place, too. A boat would be amazing for that. Alright, fair enough. The fox nodded. Good plan. I kind of want one, too. Ari, out of everyone, joined the conversation. Eh? The blonde hadn't expected that. Why? I was thinking about that lake I helped Finn make in his relaxation forest. The one with the massive cherry blossom on an island in the middle of it. The jaguar smiled at the male wolf. I think it would be quite cozy to go boating on there. I'm not opposed to that idea. Finn just nodded. Alright, let's get multiple boats. Sophia had no issues with that. If they sell boats, that is. Maya tried not to get them too excited. Don't ruin the dream. She didn't make herself overly popular with that and got multiple retorts in return. Having decided on their plan for the day, the group walked the last stretch and entered the city. There, before even being able to explore the place, the guards at the entrance had implored for Sophia and Anna, being the tigers they are, to meet the mayor immediately. The others had no intention of coming with them and decided to explore without them. However, Ari and Maya had no choice but to accompany them. Well, I most certainly wasn't expecting to meet the first princess and her girlfriend today. Inside the mayor's mansion, the 4 were greeted by a tall wolf girl who seemed to be in her mid-40s, was almost as tall as Anna, with short silver hair, light blue eyes, and a tail similar to Steph's, though not quite as fluffy. "What can I, Kai, mayor of Gaiva, do for such important guests with so little notice?" "No notice, to be exact." She focused her attention on Anna and Ari for the time being. How do you know that she's my girlfriend?" The tall tiger got a little embarrassed over the fact that they got called out by a stranger. Kai tilted her head. "When I was in the capital 2 or maybe 3 years ago for a meeting with King Menzer, I saw the two of you walking together through the castle. When I asked Queen Kira about that lovely black jaguar made with the unbelievably pretty black hair, Kira introduced her to me as the future wife of the princess." The girls in question only got more embarrassed. Ari even got dealt double damage because of being self-conscious about her hair, and how she was convinced that everyone hated it before meeting Sophia. "I forgot about that plot point." Maya raised her voice. Well, maybe not forgot but rather repressed it. She didn't want to remember how dense the two were about their feelings for each other while everyone around them knew what was going on. Dense idiots. Same. The blonde nodded. Not only had she dealt with dense Ari in the past, but she also had to deal with idiot Ari and her self-inflicted low self-esteem caused by being different and not liking it. Young love. The mayor nodded a few times. "By the way, speaking of important guests, who might you be?" Kai finally changed her attention to the other tiger. "I'm Sophia." She just smiled at her. "It's a pleasure to meet you." The mayor stared at her for a little longer. "I don't think I remember seeing any other tiger girls around Princess Anna's age during my last visit in the capital." "Don't worry about it. The blonde was still smiling, but something about her changed and caused the mayor to immediately drop the topic. "Well, the capital is big, and I was only there for a short time, so it makes sense. There's no way I saw all of the tigers." "Sure. So, again, why are two tigers and, I presume, partners?" Kai took a quick glance at Maya, who simply nodded. "Why are you visiting my city?" "I'm aware and proud that it's a popular spot in the country. Still, a visit of such important people usually only happens with prior notice so we can prepare adequate accommodation. It wasn't exactly planned." Anna scratched her cheek. "We were somewhat nearby and decided to visit." "Okay, father asked us to visit, together with various other cities, but the timing was indeed random." What a cryptic princess. Naturally, the mayor was a little confused as she was missing a lot of context. Then, the question shifts to why His Majesty asked you to visit at all. "The main reason is that I wanted to travel and get to know the country. I feel like I, as the first princess, should know my country. So, the four of us here, together with a couple of more people who are currently exploring the city, went on a trip. Before leaving, father gave us a list of places to visit." Just like your brother, huh?" Kai apparently knew that the prince had also left the capital to travel to the kingdom. "So, the list was to help you find the best spots?" "I'm honored that Gaiva is on it." "Not exactly." Anna shook her head. "The entirety of the kingdom is about to change in unimaginable ways, and we were tasked to inform the affected cities." "I don't know if I like the sound of that." The mayor got uneasy. "Don't worry, it's a good change." The princess tried to calm her down. "It's just incredibly complicated to explain and generally unbelievable." "Okay." Kai's confusion only grew. "What would you do if I were to say that there's a way to connect this place and the capital in a way that traveling between them would take seconds?" "I'd probably call for a doctor to take a look at you because our beloved princess has gone crazy." "Oh, does that mean you have a doctor that specializes in brain-related worries at hand?" Maya perked up while looking at Sophia. "Shush." The blonde glared at her in return. "I get where you're coming from, but it's true." Anna was perfectly aware that her reaction was reasonable and expected. "Sophia?" "Sure, I'll get the king." Nodding, she quickly opened a portal without warning and got ready to go through it. "Wait a moment." The princess stopped her. "How about we bring the mayor to father instead?" I feel like that would make explaining things even easier. Good point. What is that? The silver-haired wolf girl got loud. This is the connection to the capital I mentioned a few moments ago. Anna smiled at the mayor. Sophia, could you make it see-through? Ah, right. She hadn't thought that far. See? The princess then pointed inside the portal. What you can see here is my bedroom in the castle of the capital. There's just no way. What is even going on? While the tigers noticed that they overloaded Kai's common sense, they also didn't feel like explaining anymore because it was getting tedious. Making sure to give Menzer the biggest headache possible, they just went behind the mayor and pushed her through the portal so that she could meet the king directly on the other side. Chapter 134, Fabulous. The group arrived in Gaiva, a beautiful city surrounded by massive lakes, and met Kai, the mayor there, to tell her about the portals and the plan to link her city to the capital. Naturally, she couldn't believe something as outrageous and even doubted the sanity of the princess. This time, instead of bringing Menzer over to have him explain the situation, the tigers used the portal to bring the mayor to the capital instead. This would make things a lot easier, after all. Sophia, my dear. Arriving in the castle and exiting Anna's room, the group was immediately greeted by Kira, who was smiling at the blonde. I don't like the way you're looking at me. She had a bad feeling about the situation. What did you do to Menzer? What makes you think I did something to him? Sophia tried to feign innocence. Who else but you could have made his hair grow all the way down to his waist overnight? She kept staring at her. Okay, fair enough. There was little she could say there. Though, I'd probably be able to teach Ellie how to do it in a couple of days. Please don't. The queen wasn't a fan of the idea. Please don't teach my baby how to alter the body of someone. Don't worry, I won't. She's way too young for that. That's not the only issue. I didn't alter his body, by the way. Sophia lightly shook her head. I only used a little bit of healing magic on his hair roots to have them work at peak efficiency again. His hair being so long only happened because the roots got kick-started. Why, though? He blamed me for his recent hair loss, so I fixed it. The blonde gave the queen a thumbs up. He hadn't told me about that part. Kira scratched her cheek. I'm not surprised. The blonde shrugged. I thought you'd be more into it. I haven't seen him yet, but I'm sure Menzer looks fabulous right now. He absolutely does. The queen reacted with a smile. I like it a lot, but you can imagine my shock when I woke up next to him this morning, right? Ahaha, Sophia awkwardly scratched her cheek. I can see that being rather startling. Especially in the morning. No kidding. I need to see father. Anna joined the conversation. I'll never forgive myself if I can't see him with luscious hair. That's my daughter. Kira was proud of her. Why are you all here in the first place? Wait a moment. Kai. She only then noticed the wolf girl behind Maya, who was still inside the princess's room. What are you doing here? Ah, wait, I see. You all arrived in Gaiva, huh? Your travel speed is something else. How is that even possible? She stared at Sophia again. I have my ways. Her expression turned smug as she puffed out her chest. Welcome to the capital. The queen greeted the mayor. It's been a while, hasn't it? How are things going? Aside from the recent damage to your common sense, that is. I am incredibly confused. She had nothing else to say at the moment. A common feeling around Sophia. True. Anna and Maya nodded. Hey. The blonde didn't like that. Well, I confuse even myself all the time, so I guess it's justified, huh? Alright, anyway, let's head over to Menzer so that our dear Kai can get some insight on what's going on. Kira smiled at the bewildered-looking wolf. And to see a fabulous king. That. Anna nodded at her fellow tiger. Afterward, Kira guided the group to Menzer's office and slowly opened the door. Dear, you have guests. I don't think I was expecting anyone anymore today, though. He tilted his head. Also, since when do you escort them to my office? On top of that, I told you that I cancelled all my meetings before my barber fixed this mess. He pointed at his head. His hair had grown all the way down to his waist and had enough volume to make him look twice as wide. In fact, his hairstyle was quite similar to Sophia's fluffy and wavy hair. Only that his was a deep and shiny orange rather than blonde, and it was even more locked and slightly longer, too. When they're important enough, it's absolutely the job of the queen. Kira smiled at him. You look great, dear, so there's no need for a barber. Who would be this important and comes to visit without prior notice? The king only got more confused. Ah. He then noticed an all too familiar blonde tail sticking out behind the door next to his wife. Sophia, we need to talk. That's why I'm here. She playfully jumped into the doorframe and showed him a cheeky grin. My, if you were a girl, there's a chance I'd fall for you. I'll end you. He wasn't quite as happy to see her. You get angry and accuse me of being the reason you had hair loss, and when I fix it, you get angry, too. The blonde shook her head. That's unbecoming of a king. What do you mean by fixed? He got loud. You just messed with my hair because you got upset over what I said, did you not? Absolutely not. She shook her head. I used healing magic on your hair roots and made them stronger than ever before. Does that mean my hair will always be that long after a night, no matter how much it gets cut? No, that would be way too much of a pain. That's why I asked. The king was aware of her mischievous nature, after all. That was just a side effect of reactivating your roots again. They were basically dead already, after all. I had to use some extra magic to start them again. From now on, they'll work normally again. They were not almost dead. Menzer didn't like that accusation. Well, Anna and Kira scratched their cheeks. Hey! He didn't like that, either. Do you want me to reverse it? The blonde tilted her head. Let's not rush things here. His entire demeanor suddenly changed. Ahaha. Sophia had to chuckle at that. Sure thing. How long will the healing effect last? He lifted one of his luscious locks while looking at the blonde. I'm not sure about the exact time, but they should probably last as long as they did so far again. Oh. Menzer tried his best to hide his smile. You're welcome. Sophia obviously didn't fail to miss it, though. Anyway, I'm not the only guest, you know? You look amazing, father. Anna appeared next to the blonde and smiled at him. Don't you dare and cut it. It's fabulous and makes you look twice as majestic. What she said. Sophia agreed with her. Kira, too, nodded ever so slightly. He hung his head. They do have a point, Your Majesty. Kai poked her head into the office. It might be slightly too unkempt at the moment, but it has the potential to boost your aura. And who might you be? Menzer stared at her for a moment. Wait, you are the mayor of Gaiva, are you not? Kai, if I remember correctly? It's been a while, Your Majesty. She fully entered the room and gave him a slight nod. It really has. He thought so, too. Wait, what are you doing here? That's an excellent question. The wolf girl shrugged while glancing at Sophia. Ah. That was enough for him to understand the situation. In fact, I'd like to get a detailed, in-depth explanation of what, in the name of everything that is holy, is going on. She raised her voice. Well, how about you get comfortable over there? Menzer pointed at the two sofas in the corner of his office. This might take a while. Of course. Doing as told, she moved over to the seating area before everyone else did the same. I assume the chances for you explaining the plan is 0? The king stole a short glance at the blonde. 0 at best. She shook her head. I figured as much. Letting out a sigh, Menzer then focused his attention on Kai. Well, you already having used the portal should make things a lot easier. What is that, anyway? How am I in the capital right now? Long story short, magic. Perfect explanation. Sophia smiled at the king. That doesn't necessarily explain much, if at all. I know, right? Menzer agreed with her complaint on many levels. The purple thing you stepped through to come here is an invention by Sophia, and she calls it a portal. The way she uses magic is on another level, and she's capable of doing things that should be impossible. One of those impossible things are the mentioned portals. This magic allows her to connect two faraway places with each other and allows one to go from one spot to another basically in an instant. Huh. Kai went silent for a moment. Impossible is a very fitting word. Was magic even possible to do something like that? Magic can do whatever you want it to do. The blonde gave her a thumbs up. It appears to be. The wolf girl scratched her cheek. Also, while impossible is indeed a perfect description, I experienced it. I stepped through a purple thing and went from Gaiva to the royal castle in a mere moment. Having them come over here really simplifies things. Menzer was glad that the mayor had already accepted the situation. We can do it like that every time from now on. The blonde smiled at him. That would be helpful. I still don't know why I'm here. Kai got louder again. Ahem. The king cleared his throat. Sophia graciously allowed us to use her portals. And because of the dividends generated by the taxation of its use. While the short tiger was definitely happy about being able to better the kingdom, she absolutely had no issues with profiting from it. That is also the case, yes. He nodded. Anyway, we plan to use this to connect notable cities and other points of interest with a central point just in front of the capital, revolutionizing the way we all travel and transport goods. Wow. Kai wasn't sure how to respond to that before looking at the princess. You really weren't kidding when you said that there's a plan that will change the kingdom from the ground up. Yes. Wait. The mayor, once more, raised her voice. As life-changing as that sounds, isn't it extremely dangerous to have the whole kingdom accessible by one place? I'm not sure if I could subject my city to such a security risk. I can understand that. The king nodded. That's also the reason we decided to put the hub, where all the portals are located, outside of the city walls. Well, that protects the capital, but what about the places on the other side of the connection? Another valid concern. Further proof that you are an excellent mayor. It fills me with great joy to hear that from you, Your Majesty. Yes, to address that concern, the military commanders and I recently decided to relocate the garrisons of the capital's standing army. They were in line for modernization anyway, and so we decided to build them from the ground up in the same area as the portal hub. If anyone wants to reach Gaiva, or any other city for that matter, they have to go through my army first. Menzer's expression turned serious. Okay, that's quite reassuring. It was enough to convince Kai. Not to mention that this allows us to immediately respond to emergencies. He looked right at her. If you send a distress signal that Gaiva is under attack, the army will be there to aid you in minutes. He then looked at Sophia. This doesn't violate our agreement, does it? Nope. She shook her head. Using my portal to defend the kingdom is okay and encouraged. Attacking other places would be a no-no, though. Perfect. Speaking of our deal, have you forgotten that the portals come with built-in protection against this stuff? The blonde looked a little confused. Attacking armies or individuals with extreme malicious intent would cause the portals to shut down. I'm aware of that. He nodded. I also don't want to bet everything on one hand, though. Fair enough. Sophia couldn't blame him there. You do know how to convince people. Kai ignored the exchange and stared back at the king. Alright, I need some more details on the exact plan, but consider Gaiva more than interested. Great to hear. Afterward, once Sophia had finally gotten too bored of the situation, she decided that it was time to head back to the beautiful lake city while the king would handle the rest with the mayor. She then took Maya, Anna, and Ari, and the girls returned to reunite with the others who were already exploring Gaiva. Chapter 135, Water City Date. Sophia, together with Anna and their partners, had brought Kai, the mayor of Gaiva, to the royal castle in the capital to have Menzer explain the situation and the portal plans to her. Once they were done with that, they left them behind and reunited with the others, who had decided to go and have fun without them in the Water City. Oh, it looks like Chloe and Steph split up with the wolves. The group had just exited the mayor's mansion when Sophia took a peek at the current situation with her detection magic. Maybe they changed from exploring to going on a date instead? Ari took a wild guess. Oh. Anna seemed to like the sound of that. Let's do that, too. She stared at her jaguar with sparkling eyes. I support this suggestion. Nodding a few times, Maya then smiled at the blonde. Sure. Sophia smiled back at her. How about we regroup in the cottage once we're done, before doing some group explorations, including the fishing trip Steph suggested. She tilted her head while looking at the royal couple. Okay. Anna nodded. Sounds like a plan. Ari did so, too. I have one of your portal stones, so we're good on that part. Let's go. Highly motivated, the princess grabbed Ari's hand, and the two quickly disappeared into one of the city's streets. What she said. The catgirl was just as motivated about it. Okay. So, where do you want to go, princess? It had been around 5 minutes, and Maya and Sophia were walking hand in hand on a street alongside a roughly 4-meter-wide canal. Wrong, tiger. The blonde lightly rolled her eyes while smiling at her catgirl. Anna's everyone's princess, but you are mine. Someone's trying to be smooth today, huh? I'm always smooth. Maya showed her a cheeky grin. Sure. That's definitely what you are. Somehow, Sophia's voice was highly playful while she said those words. There's no need to sound the way you did. The catgirl started pouting. What would you have done in my place? Fair enough. Maya couldn't really defend herself there. Hee hee. Sophia let out a small chuckle. Anyway, the princess would like some food. How do you know Anna's hungry? The catgirl tilted her head. Good one. Is there anything you particularly fancy? Food would be nice. The blonde shrugged. For the type of food, I'm open to whatever we find first. You're almost too uncomplicated. I don't think anyone ever used those words to describe me. If anything, Sophia had gotten used to being called the exact opposite. Huh. She froze for a moment. In relation to food, you overcomplicated dork. That truly sounds more like me. The blonde smiled at her cat. I do have some few things I dislike, but overall, it would be a miracle to find a place where there isn't anything I'd eat. It makes it harder to decide on a place to eat, though. Well, if you want me to choose a place, you are certainly correct, but I'll be happy with like the first cafe we run into. I just decided that I want something sweet, by the way. That's why a cafe, huh? Also, so much for everything is fine. The catgirl lightly rolled her eyes. We can also look for a steakhouse if that tickles your fancy. Sophia shrugged. That's how much I really care. I'm in favor of the sweet suggestion. Maya shook her head a couple of times. I'm not surprised. She smiled at her. You're one of our biggest sweet tooths, after all. Wait, did you decide on a cafe because of me? There's no way I would have thought that far ahead. Sophia reacted with a slight smirk. Smooth. She didn't believe her. How can I be smooth when you're supposed to be the smooth one here? Shut up. Ehe. The blonde liked her reaction. The couple followed the street they were on for a little while longer before they eventually found a lovely cafe. It even had an outdoor area with seating right next to the canal, which divided the two sides of the street, so you could watch the water and boats while enjoying your food and drinks. I wonder if I could put a whole city into my domain. The couple got seated on a table right next to the canal, and Sophia was excitedly looking around. It's such a beautiful space. I'm not sure if the people here would enjoy being inside a white void. Maya scratched her cheek. Especially if you just go and borrow the city without prior notice. That's true. The blonde looked around for a little longer. I'm not sure if I'm ready to have an extended amount of people inside it, either. Do you even want to? Good point. She shook her head a few times. Sounds like a massive pain. I would assume so, yes. Maya smiled at her. It also wouldn't be a good idea to rob the homes of all those people. Borrow the homes. The blonde corrected her. You are right, though. Let's try and find an abandoned city during our travels. Sure. She nodded. Though, it might be best to check in with Menzer first before liberating it from its confinement in whatever location it is. How nice and considerate of you. That would probably be good, yeah. We might accidentally borrow a place that was reserved for something or whatever. Okay, with that decided, let's order already. Getting a little impatient, Maya tapped the menu they were holding a couple of times. I want some chocolate cake, by the way. I'm feeling fruity today, so it'll be cake decorated with lots of fruit for me. Picking something that matched their fancy together with some drinks, the couple called over a waitress and ordered just that. Oh, it looks good. Just a few minutes later, their order had arrived, and the cat girl was staring at her rich chocolate cake with sparkling eyes. It really does. While not as excited, Sophia was also quite happy about her sponge cake, which was lavishly decorated with cream and various fruits, including strawberries, blueberries, and sliced kiwi. Oh. Maya suddenly clapped her hands. Doesn't that kinda remind you of our first date? The blonde, who had just tried her first bite, tilted her head with the fork still in her mouth. Do you mean the time when you dragged me into a cafe shortly after we met and called it a date out of nowhere? Exactly that. She nodded. Not a lot of that day stuck, because you fried my brain with your extrovertedness, but didn't you have the fruit cake while I had chocolate? You're right. Maya stared at their cakes again. Wanna share? She then held out her fork, which had a bite of her chocolate cake on it. Sure. The blonde leaned lightly over the table and took it. Yep, back then, you had a complete meltdown over that. She smiled at her striped girlfriend, who had come a long way since then. Ahaha, she had mixed feelings about that. Current me is a massive improvement over Sophia from back then. Old Sophia did have her cute moments, though. Maya didn't think everything about the blonde from the past was a mess. Just because I was easier to tease. That is not completely unrelated. She just gave her a cheeky smirk in return. It's not like you aren't still easy to tease either. I tease back now, though. You've gotten quite good at it, too. Thank you very much. Sophia smiled at her again. Anyway, want some fruits? She then held up her fork with some of her cake. Absolutely. Taking up the offer, Maya leaned over to take a bit of her cake. Oh ho, this one's good, too. Afterward, the duo continued their cafe date while chatting some more and finishing up their cakes. That being said, most of their cake was fed to the other, so they basically ended up swapping their order, though neither of them seemed to have cared about that. I wonder where we can get one of those boats. The couple had left the cafe area and were walking hand in hand alongside one of the many water canals where the blonde was looking at one of the many boats in there. That's a good question. Maya also watched the activity on the water for a little bit. If I had to guess, maybe somewhere near one of the entrances of the city? Or maybe where the lakes go into the city. That sounds logical. The blonde nodded. Well, I'm sure Steph already sniffed out the place we need to go. Judging by how excited she was about it, there's a high chance of that being the case, yes. Speaking of that sister of mine, it seems like she and Chloe just returned to the cottage as I felt them using a portal. Well, after visiting the mayor, the trip to the capital, and our date, quite some time has passed, so they're probably taking a break. The catgirl could see why they returned. Should we go, too? Sophia looked at her while tilting her head. We can ask them if they found the boating place and maybe tell us about other interesting places they found in the city. Sounds good to me. She agreed with the plan. They might have found more dating spots, too. We definitely have to check them out. Yes. Having decided on that, the couple headed back to Sophia's domain to check in with her sister and Chloe to see what they'd been up to during the day and maybe get a tip or two for another date to have while they were in the water city. Chapter 136, Ball. Sophia and Maya went on a quick date while they were in Gaiva and made a stop in a cozy cafe together. That made them remember their very first date shortly after meeting each other, where the cat girl had dragged the blonde on a date out of nowhere. Compared to back then, Sophia was a lot less of a nervous mess, though, and the two simply enjoyed their time with each other. Welcome home. Arriving in the cottage after their date, Sophia and Maya were energetically greeted by Chloe and Steph, who were already in the living room. We're back. Sophia lightly waved at the couple. Are you two done with the mayor and the portal business? The pink fox was interested in how their day went. Yup. The blonde smiled at her. That was taken care of rather quickly, actually. Anna and I threw her through the portal and brought her to the king in the capital, which made making her believe our plan much easier. Afterward, Sophia and I explored the water city a little more and went on a date. Maya came to the more important part. We did the same. Steph clapped her hands. It's such a nice city. I love the canals. Chloe agreed with her. True. The tiger and cat felt the same. That you two find any fun date spots, by the way? Maya tilted her head while looking at the two. Sophia and I found a nice cafe that served amazing cake, and we looked at some of the canals, but that was about it before returning to the cottage. The cafe with the outside seating right next to the main water canal? The pink fox tilted her head. Steph and I were there for lunch, and you're right, the cake was awesome. Usually not my type of lunch, but it was indeed delicious. Steph nodded. The extra sugar also was quite helpful for playing at the beach afterward. Too bad we never found the ball we lost, huh? It was such a good ball, too. Steph sounded devastated all of a sudden. You two went to the beach and played fetch? Sophia raised an eyebrow. Yep. Her sister saw no issue with that. Just how much dog are you? Yes. Steph's expression turned a little cheeky. I'm very in tune with myself. She definitely found her calling. Maya had nothing else to add. True. Chloe nodded. Not that the older sister isn't a perfect fit for being a tiger, either. We haven't gone hunting in a while, have we? Sophia's inner tiger woke up after hearing that. Count me in. Steph liked the idea. By the way, how was the beach? Maya decided that it was time to change the topic before the sisters went too feral and looked at the fox. It was great. Chloe smiled at her. From where we came from, you could roughly see that the city is surrounded by lakes, but from the beach, it actually felt like being at the sea. The sand was beautifully white, too. It also felt nice to the touch, because it's fine sand and not something coarse or the size of pebbles. The water was really clean and clear, as well. That sounds amazing. Maya lightly clapped her hands before looking at Sophia. We really need to go there. Absolutely. She didn't want to miss it, either. Speaking of, has any of you found a place where we can rent and or buy boats? Sophia tilted her head. We saw a ton of boats on the canals in the city, but we haven't found the source. Of course. Steph gave her a thumbs up. We're going fishing tomorrow. There's a dock near where the lake flows into the city, where you can rent them. The pink fox added a bit of detail. We've already rented one for tomorrow, too. They didn't appear to sell them, though. But they told us that we should visit the other lake entrance if we're serious about buying a boat. It seems like there is a place where we can buy them. Awesome. Sophia liked the plan. We're back. While the four were chatting, Anna's excited voice suddenly echoed through the entrance hall. We're in the living room. Steph answered her. Welcome. She waved at the princess and Ari the moment they entered. Hey. The jaguar waved back at her. Done with the date? Maya wanted to know how it went for them. Yes. Anna nodded. Though, we were a little tired, so we just opted for a little exploring and eating together in a restaurant. This is such a scenic city. The jaguar seemed happy with the way their date went. Did you also go to the nice cafe with the awesome cake? The cat girl wanted details. That sounds lovely, but no. Ari shook her head. Just before coming back, we had a nice dinner in an excellent steakhouse we came across. The tiger wanted meat. Anna pointed at herself. The steak was massive. Delicious and tender, too. So did the jaguar. Ari did the same. The fries also were tasty. Everyone's in tune with their inner animal, huh? Maya felt reminded of their earlier conversation. I'm hungry again. The sisters had a strong reaction to the royal couple's dinner description. I think I know where the rest of us will have dinner later. Chloe also got a little interested. Yep. So was the cat girl. Well, I can 100% recommend it. Anna gently rubbed her stomach. Anyway, I'm about to fall into a food coma, so I'll take a bath now, before spending the rest of the evening on that sofa over there. She pointed at the free sofa on her left in the living room. I'm in complete and full support of this plan. Ari nodded a couple of times while also patting her stomach with a satisfied expression. Even though it hadn't been that long since Maya and Sophia had their cake, after having heard about the steakhouse, they decided to get some more food. After all, sweets go to a separate stomach, and their main one was still empty. Steph and Chloe had cake for lunch, so they were more than okay with a savory dinner, and so the 4 carnivores on Main returned to the Water City to get some meat. Oh, Fenny, Aura. Back in Gaiva, the group ran into the wolves, and Sophia waved at them. Hey! The female wolf nodded at her. Where are you all headed to? Fen and I were about to return to the cottage. Anna and Ari told us about a steakhouse that put them into a food coma. The blonde smiled at them. There's no way we could have passed on that. Steph sounded as excited as her sister about that. Oh. Fen's ears perked up, and his tail began to wag ever so slightly. Interested, my big guy? The tiger didn't fail to notice his reaction. I'm sure they also cater to fulls. We haven't had dinner yet. Aura helped him out a little. A big slab of meat sounds quite enticing, too. I have to agree. The male wolf nodded. He also lost a lot of energy from playing at the beach all day, so I'm sure he needs some calories. Aura's voice turned playful. He ran around a whole lot. Hey. Dogs be dogs, huh? Sophia glanced at her sister while saying so. The beach was the best, wasn't it? Steph raised her voice. I played so much, too. Why don't you tell them about the ball you found? Aura was having a great time. Would you shut up? You found a ball? The dog girl got even louder. I've lost mine while playing when I hit it too hard. I'm going to miss that perfect blue ball with white stripes so much. Interesting. The female wolf tilted her head. That sounds exactly like the ball we found. It came flying to us out of nowhere, and Finn chased it down. No way. Steph couldn't believe it. That has to be mine. Where is it now? We left it at the beach. Aura had bad news for her. New. The dog girl dramatically fell on her knees. What was so special about that ball? Sophia was a big supporter of being overly and needlessly dramatic, but not even she could follow her. It was the bestest and most bounciest ball in existence. It was indeed rather bouncy. Fen answered without thinking. That definitely was my ball, then. Also, Chloe bought it for me, so it was twice as good. Okay, fair enough on that. The blonde couldn't blame her for liking a present she got from her girlfriend. Can you show me where you left it? Steph stared at the wolves. From what Ari told us, the steakhouse is near the beach where I lost it, anyway. Sure, we can take a look. Aura wanted to try and help her. Yay! The wolves joined the group for their dinner plans in the steakhouse, but before that, everyone went to the beach to retrieve the ball their dog had lost while playing. We left the ball somewhere around here. Having arrived at the beach, Aura gestured towards the lake in front of her. Steph scanned the entire area. I see something. She instantly sprinted onto the beach and jumped at a blue object she saw in the distance. It is my ball. Isn't that great? Chloe smiled at her with a warm expression. Wearing one of her biggest smiles yet, the dog girl returned to the group while tightly holding the ball to her chest and energetically wagging her tail from side to side. She can be quite cute if she wants to. Maya had nothing else to say. Yep. Chloe and Sophia nodded. Once she was reunited with her beloved ball, the group left the beach and went to the steakhouse that was recommended by the royal couple. Arriving there, everyone ordered way too much, heavily overate on meat, and barely made it home before falling into a deep food coma, joining Anna and Ari. Chapter 137, Boating. While talking about what they did during their dates, Anna and Ari mentioned the steakhouse they visited. The other carnivores were quite intrigued by that and decided to all have dinner there. After having collected the wolves and retrieved Steph's favorite ball from the beach, they did just that and ended the day in a deep food coma they fell into afterward. Boating time. Around noon on the following day, after everyone slept in, the group returned to Gaiva to explore it some more. While most still looked tired, Steph was already full of energy. We also wanted to go fishing during the boat trip, right? Anna tilted her head. Does the boat rental place also give out fishing rods, or do we have to get them elsewhere? Don't worry, I have some rods in my storage. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Why? Ari tilted her head. Why not? The blonde simply shrugged in return. They're good fishing rods, too. Maya smiled at the jaguar. I used them before. You really have to let me take a peek at your storage already. Steph stared at her sister. I just have to see what's all in there. That's not a good idea. She shook her head. You'd absolutely get lost, and even with me knowing where everyone is inside my domain at all times, I'm not confident I could find you in the mess that is my storage. Sounds fun. It only made the dog girl more excited. Just how big is it? The jaguar raised her voice. Yes. Sophia just had to do it. Ari rolled her eyes. Anyway, how about we head over to the rental place? Sophia returned to the initial topic. Let's go. Steph forgot about the storage already. By the way, didn't the wolves really not want to come with us? She addressed the fact that the two weren't around. Fen didn't trust all of us together on a boat. Sophia shrugged. Aura also wanted to go and play with him some more. Fen can be quite wise every now and then. The jaguar nodded a couple of times. Speaking of, could we try not to capsize 5 minutes in? The sisters looked at each other. We'll try, yes. Afterward, the girls made their way over to the rental place and got their boat. It was a simple brown rowing boat, but it was easily big enough for the 6 girls to be comfortable and still have some storage space left. The boat had 3 rows of seats, and the sisters took the one in the middle as they decided to take care of the rowing and took 1 paddle each. Anna and Ari got on the back, while Chloe and Maya shared the front row for the time being. They had turned around to look at the sisters, though. You know, it's a little wobbly, but it's pretty fun. While they were slowly moving further into the lake, the princess looked around and took in the sights. I agree. Ari smiled at her before dangling her arm out of the boat and dipping her fingertips into the water. Don't you dare to capsize us, though. Her expression changed a little. The water is way too cold for that. That will entirely depend on how much the fish we might catch will fight back, but we'll try our best. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. How are you liking it so far? Steph looked at her fox instead. It's fun. Chloe smiled at her. I agree with the wobbly bit, but I actually like that a lot, too. That's awesome to hear. The dog girl was happy that she was having a good time. It's fascinating how clear the water is. Maya leaned over the side of the boat and tried to gauge how deep she could look down into the near crystal clear water. It's kinda shallow right now, but I can still see the ground. It is very pretty, but also probably bad for fishing, because they can see us and get wary. The blonde wasn't sure how to feel about it. Even worse, I can't see any fish in the first place. Steph noticed a lack of fish in the water around them. Sophia only just realized that before looking around. There are a couple of people fishing in their boats, but they're way further out, so I guess we have to find a good spot first. By the way, what are we going to do about the bait? Maya tilted her head. We know that our princess doesn't like worms and the likes that are usually used for bait. Eh? Anna tilted her head. I'm not exactly a fan, but I don't really have an issue with worms. I was talking about my oversensitive princess. The cat girl gestured at the blonde. Can you use ladybugs for bait? Sophia remembered that Maya's mother told her that her daughter was afraid of them and then stared right at her cat. She went silent. Anyway, I got some artificial bait. The blonde gave her a thumbs up. It's some sort of thick paste made out of. I don't think I want to know, and formed into a ball to attach to the lure, so I'm fine. The lengths you go through to avoid insects or other crawly stuff like worms will never cease to amaze me. Steph rolled her eyes. She's been using that bait ever since we were little and refused to use live bait during our first fishing trip. I'll never change. Sophia raised her voice. I hate those creepy little buggers. Maybe you should try some exposure therapy? Ari earnestly tried to help her. Exposure therapy between me and bugs would end up in an extinction event. The blonde's expression turned a little sour, to say the least. I know that insects are important and useful, so I'd rather not do that. Well, it was just a suggestion. The jaguar scratched her cheek. It's nice to see that you realized that it would be bad to erase all bugs and the like. I'm not completely stupid, okay? I may have some irrational fears, as everyone does, but I do know that genocide is rarely the correct answer. It's never the answer. Ari got loud. Fine. Sophia rolled her eyes in response. Don't look so disappointed. She raised her voice even more. How about we try and find a spot with fish? As much as she loved her sister being unhinged, Steph wanted to get to the main attraction. Having put the genocide discussion on hold for the time being, they concentrated on their boating trip again. The sisters rowed them further onto the lake while everyone was on the lookout to find any hints of fish below the surface. Oh, I saw something moving just now. After around 20 minutes of paddling, Maya suddenly pointed to her right, her eyes fixed on a spot on the lake while her tail pointed completely up. The cat found the fish. Steph let out a chuckle. Such a strong reaction, too. Shut up, dog. Maya glared at her. Okay, fair comeback. She couldn't blame her for that reaction. Alright, let's slowly head over there without making too much of a ruckus. Sophia put a finger on her lips to silence them. We don't want to scare them away, do we? Right. The bickering duo nodded before the sisters got the boat closer to the spot where Maya spotted the fish. I don't want to sound like a sheltered princess again, but how do you fish? Anna awkwardly scratched her cheek as she watched the fish in the water a little bit away from them. Yes. Ari nodded. I don't really know how to do it either. Shouldn't a cat instinctively know how to catch fish? Steph seemed to be in a barky mood today. I don't think it's in our nature to know how to use a fishing rod. The jaguar slowly shook her head while staring at her. Exactly. Anna agreed with her. I mean, I feel like I know at which angle I had to jump into the water to stay out of the fish's sight and catch it with my bare hands, but I have no idea how to use a rod. About 25 to 30 degrees. Sophia smiled at her fellow tiger. We'd need to move a tiny bit more to our right for that to work, though. Maya's cat instincts were also working. Huh. The dog girl hadn't expected them to go full instinct on her. I also don't want to jump into the water. The princess shook her head. Very much so. Ari felt the same. Way too cold. Time for a training session. Saying so, Sophia grabbed into her storage and pulled out a couple of fishing rods, to hand one to each. She then also took out a box with the artificial bait balls and a set of colorful lures. Okay, the rod is a rod, and the reel is used to pull in the line. It's pretty self-explanatory, I guess? So far, yes. Anna was able to follow her. The lure is the more interesting part. The blonde opened the box and took out something that looked like a small blue fish with 2 hooks dangling from its body. This thing gets attached to the end of the like. It's to lure another fish. The bait goes on the hooks for, well, obvious reasons. Saying so, she took 2 of the bait balls and pierced them on the hooks. Makes sense. Ari nodded along. The most complicated part is getting the lure into the water or casting it. Technically, at least, because it's not actually complicated. Having attached the lure to the line and put some bait on the hooks, Sophia grabbed the handle of the rod with her right hand and effortlessly cast the line with a light movement of her arm. The lure flew through the air and hit the water with a satisfying plop sound around 15 meters away from the boat. You don't really need to use any power at all. For casual fishing like this, at least. The only thing you really have to watch out for is that nothing is in the way of the arc the lure takes. You absolutely don't want to get your hook stuck in anything. Steph added some detail. Or anyone. Sophia suddenly glared at her sister. You would know, right? Come on. She got loud. That was over 6 years ago. Your earlobe grew back together without any marks, too. Just be careful, okay? The blonde rolled her eyes and just looked at the couple. If I'm the one saying that, it means something, okay? Okay. Both energetically nodded a couple of times. I hope you apologized back when that happened. Chloe had nothing else to say when she looked at Steph. Of course. Afterward, Sophia showed them how to do it a couple more times to make sure they understood how it was done before the other girls finally prepared their own lures and cast their rods to have a relaxing day of fishing in the middle of a massive lake. Chapter 138, Fishing. The group was still in Gaiva, and the girls had just rented a boat together to go on a fishing trip in the middle of one of the massive lakes around the city. After Sophia gave a brief tutorial on how to use a fishing rod and prepare a lure with bait because the sisters knew how to fish as they had done it a lot in the past, the other girls also gave it a try. Fishing is fun. After around an hour, Ari got the hang of it and enjoyed it a lot. It's so easy, too. Sounding quite proud, Anna looked at the basin between the couple's feet, which had 4 fish between 30 and 40 centimeters swimming in it. So true. Chloe nodded a couple of times while looking at the basin between her and Maya, which even had 6 fish in it. We should go fishing together more often. Absolutely. Maya smiled at the fox next to her. I always forget how enjoyable it is. The sisters were suspiciously quiet as they stared at the tiny and empty bucket beneath them. The two had yet to catch their first fish. It's always like this, isn't it? The cat girl looked at them with a wry smile. The ones with the most experience and knowledge get the short end of the stick during those group activities. Trying to console us only hurts more. What she said. Steph and Sophia didn't want to hear it. Your teaching was great, though. Chloe also tried to cheer up the blonde. We're definitely just having beginner's luck. I'm no beginner, though. Maya pointed at herself. Are you trying to help or make it worse? Decide. The fox glared at her. I'll make up for it by preparing a feast of fish tonight. She reacted with a smug expression. That's not going to make it any ... I love you. It worked pretty well on Sophia, and she didn't even let Chloe finish her sentence. Still upset. It didn't work quite as well on Steph. Fine, I'll get you a new ball to play with as a backup to cheer you up. Maya just rolled her eyes. I feel like I'm not taken seriously here. The dog girl started pouting. You've been making cat jokes all day already, so you're in no position to complain. The cat girl didn't let her have it. She had nothing to say in her defense. Sophia, can I try a way of fishing that is more befitting of this world? I have a feeling I know what you're planning. The blonde glanced at the hand of her sister, which had become covered in pink and purple magic particles. I actually have no idea how fish would react to that. I wonder if they get curious about it. Only one way to find out. I'm not sure I like whatever is happening at the moment. Ari had a bad feeling. She wants to try fishing with magic. As Chloe could also see the particles, she made a guess about her plan. Do I want to be on the boat when that is going on? The jaguar's bad feeling got worse. Let's go. Ignoring Ari's complaints, the dog girl grabbed a few of the bait balls and bathed them in the magic particles that were coming out of her hand. Afterward, she grabbed the fanciest rainbow lure with the biggest hook they had and pierced 5 balls of bait on it. Ah, wait a moment. Sophia suddenly stopped her right when she was about to cast the line. The blonde placed her hand on Steph's rod and bathed the whole thing in her own magic particles. I went ahead and reinforced it and the line with magic so they're stronger. Good call. The dog girl smiled at her. Also, try to aim really far that way. Sophia pointed towards her right and further onto the lake. I can feel some very faint magic power from down there. It's about the same as a cow or a horse, so it might be the same size. Now that's a fish worthy to be caught. Steph got extra motivated after hearing this. Immediately following suit, she cast the line in the direction her sister was pointing at. The lure made a beautiful arc in the air before hitting the surface almost 150 meters away from the boat. In how much danger are we right now? The jaguar tilted her head. I mean, if it has the same magic power as horses or cows, it should have similar physical strength, too. Chloe wasn't worried. Phew. Ari seemed relieved. You've never seen a horse or a cow messed with enough for them to become enraged, have you? Maya looked at the fox girl while shaking her head. They're scary. Why and how do you know that? The jaguar stared at her. She went silent for a moment while scratching her cheek. Not everyone had as a sheltered childhood as you and Anna had. Some of us had fun. Don't mess with horses. Sophia didn't like that. I like them. They sure are scary when angry, though, that is true. And what about cows? The jaguar noticed that the blonde addressed only one issue. Well, her expression also turned awkward. Hee hee. Do you remember the time when we visited that farm when we were little and Shoo. Sophia silenced her sister before she could finish her sentence. That's my girlfriend. Maya was proud of her. I knew you know how to have fun. Good job for you, too, Steph. Thanks. The dog girl smiled at her. To be fair, though, while it was fun as kids because we all apparently were brats, I wouldn't enjoy it nowadays. True. Sophia nodded. Hunting animals, sure, but messing with them for the sake of messing with them would probably feel odd. You have a point there. Maya also agreed with the sister. I haven't done something like that in forever either. Good memories, but having matured a little, I'd tend to agree. So, back to my concern. Ari tried to get back on track. The chances of getting wet today are higher than anticipated. The cat girl smiled at her. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about the good kind of getting wet either. Ugh. The jaguar hung her head. I hate being cold and wet. Especially if it's the wrong kind. She played along a little. Hot and wet is indeed better. Steph just had to. We can do that later today in the evening, but for now, it's time that the sisters beat all of you in fishing. There were more important things to take care of for the time being. What she said. Sophia agreed with her. The second part, at least. The first part shall be mostly everyone's own responsibility. Are you sure there was anything big in the water around there? Around 20 minutes had passed since the sisters started their enhanced fishing when Steph pointed at the area of the lake where her line entered the water. Yes. The blonde nodded. It's still there, too. In fact, it's been circling around the lure for a while now already. With quite a bit of distance in between, though. A shy one, huh? I'd call it wary, but sure. Sophia rolled her eyes. Same difference. She didn't care about semantics. How about you put some more magic into the bait to make it more appetizing? The older sister tried to come up with a way to lure whatever was in the lake out. Great idea. Agreeing with her, Steph gripped the handle of her fishing rod a little stronger and poured more of her internal magic into it. The particles then moved up the rod and along the line all the way to where it entered the lake before eventually reaching the lure and hooks. Oh. A moment later, Sophia's ears and tail perked up. Someone became interested. Let's go. Steph's excitement rose. A moment later, small ripples began to appear on the surface of the water, indicating that something was moving below. Instantly after, the line attached to the fishing rod began moving with such force that it almost pulled the dog girl out of the boat. It's a strong one. Sophia quickly wrapped her arms around her sister's waist to make sure she stayed in the boat. The line was still connected to the fish, though, and it was strong enough to pull the whole boat, causing it to zoom around on the lake, with the girls doing their best to stay on. That's no fish, that's a monster. Holding on for dear life, Ari was far from enjoying the current situation. I know, right? Steph's voice was filled with excitement. This is the best. Try to reel it in. The blonde was firing her on. On it. The dog girl nodded and started working on her rod. She pulled it towards herself a couple of times while trying to spool in the line to get whatever had bitten on the hook ever so closer. Luckily, as her strength was far above that of ordinary people, thanks to her high magic powers, she had no issues with that. The only struggle was keeping the boat upright from all the shaking. Whoa, it's a sturgeon. Thanks to the water being so clear, Sophia soon was able to identify the silvery fish, with an elongated body and scuts on its back, long before it surfaced. And what a fine one, too. It being way over 8 meters long, maybe even getting close to 10, made her eyes grow wide. I've never seen one of this size. Steph was equally surprised. I didn't know they could get that big. Aren't the biggest ones usually half this size? I mean, we are in a different world. Sophia scratched her cheek. Good point. The dog girl nodded a couple of times while wrestling with the fishing rod. I have heard of sturgeons that size before. Maya tilted her head. It appeared that the New World did have some peculiarities here and there. Although, saying it's rare would be a massive understatement. Sturgeons themselves are common, though, so this one probably just never got caught and grew old as there's an abundance of them to catch. Oh, if they're not rare here, I want to keep it as a pet. Sophia took a liking to the big fish. I like the way you're thinking. Steph was on the same page as her. How do we catch it, though? It's kind of a big guy, after all. Just get it closer and I'll take care of the rest. She smiled at her. Alrighty. Steph spent the next couple of minutes getting the fish closer to the boat. Once it was almost right next to them, the sturgeon suddenly got restless and jumped out of the water and right over them. Using that chance, Sophia opened a portal in the air, and the fish had no other chance than to pass through it and disappear. And with that, the sisters win the fishing activity. Sophia looked extra smug after she made the portal disappear. Afterward, they took a little break because the royal couple needed time to catch up with what had just happened. Chapter 139, Greg. The group went on a fishing trip, and as a matter of course, the sisters overdid it a little. After having been upset that the two were the only ones who hadn't caught anything yet, they enchanted some bait with a healthy dose of magic and managed to attract an almost 10-meter-long sturgeon from the depths of the lake and successfully caught it. Where did it go? Still on the lake inside their boat, Ari looked rather confused as she looked at the spot above them where a massive sturgeon had just jumped over before the blonde portaled it away. Inside my domain, of course. Sophia smiled at her. Well, yeah, I figured as much. The jaguar rolled her eyes. It's not a good place for a fish, though, is it? Especially when it's such a massive one. I don't know. The blonde tilted her head. I felt like the lake you and Fenny made was a good place to put it. Why? She got loud. That's the relaxation place for Fan and me. There's no space for a 10-meter big lake monster. It seemed pretty relaxed before it got hooked, if you ask me. Sophia didn't think it would be an issue. I also think our big wolf would have fun playing with it and trying to catch it. You're probably right about the second part. Ari could see how Fun would like that. Well, it didn't try to attack us and was minding its own business before getting caught, so I guess it's alright. Won't it starve, though? Chloe was concerned about it. There's nothing in terms of food, like other fish, in there, right? Sturgeons are hunters, right? Only feeding them some regular fish food probably won't work. That's a good and important point. The blonde nodded a couple of times. She looked around for a little while. Ari, would you mind if I dump some more fish and other water life into that lake of yours and Fen? I don't think it's a good idea to borrow this lake, you know? The jaguar had a bad feeling about the plan. I don't want the entire lake. She shook her head. I just want to get enough fish to keep the big boy happy and entertained. Well, if you fish for them, it would take forever, so what's the plan? The princess tilted her head. Hey! Both sisters got loud when they heard how the tall tiger pronounced the U. Heh. She had hoped for this reaction. Anyway. Pouting for a second, the blonde then continued. I plan to place a portal in the lake, somewhere near the ground so that no one sees it, and have fish and other lake inhabitants swim through it on their own. How do you make sure the fish don't go back, though? Chloe got interested in Sophia's plan. More importantly, what if Greg uses the portal to return home? A good case, wait, who's Greg? She got confused over the name. What person did I forget about this time? It's the big fish you two caught earlier. The pink fox smiled at her. It's Greg. Alright, sure. Sophia decided not to question it. I like Greg. Steph was okay with it, too. What if it's a female fish? Ari noticed a flaw. Greg's a unisex name. The sisters and Chloe unionized. Is it? She didn't believe them. Yes. Back to the portal. Sophia raised her voice. I can make them one way only. That way, the fish can swim into my domain, but they can't come back. Oh, that's a great solution. Chloe gave her a thumbs up. I didn't know you could do that. I just decided that they can do that. The blonde reacted with a cheeky smirk. I mean, I can already control who can go through it and who cannot, so making it one way only is actually a much easier thing to do if you ask me. If you say so? While the pink fox couldn't entirely follow her, she still got the gist of it. Okay, I'll put the portal down right here, deep enough that you can't see it anymore. Saying so, Sophia put her hand over the water next to the boat and concentrated for a second. That should be it. I wonder if the fish get curious and swim through. Even if it doesn't work, I think it will help a lot with other things. Chloe scratched her cheek while saying so. Right now, it's basically just a big hole filled with water created by magic, right? She looked at the jaguar. Pretty much. Ari nodded. Lakes are usually not that sterile, are they? The fox tilted her head. There's tons of algae and little critters, together with a bunch more microorganisms to make life for fish even possible in the first place. That is true. Sophia agreed with her. Most of those are also just passively floating through the water and so will definitely go through the portal sooner or later. For the fish, I guess we just have to wait and hope. We could also start with the fish we already caught. Anna pointed at the basin full of fish next to her feet. Nope, those are dinner. The blonde had other plans for them. Fair enough. The princess couldn't say anything there. Having been satisfied with their catch, the sisters especially, the group explored the lake with their rented boat for a little longer before eventually getting closer to the city again. From there, they entered one of the canals leading into Gaiva to row through the waterways that were going everywhere along the streets. Before that, Sophia had also put their caught fish into her domain, though. Having them in the basins between their feet would have been a little much, after all. Alright, who wants to take over? Having just entered the city, Sophia pointed at the paddle she had been using until now. How about it, Chloe? She looked at the fox. You were the most interested in a boat ride the other day, so it would only make sense to be in charge of it at least once, right? If no one minds that we'll travel at an incredibly slow pace, I'd like to give it a try. The fox nodded a couple of times. My arms aren't the strongest, after all. What you do at night with me speaks a different language, though. Steph just had to. Good things, I want to add. That's my fingers. She shook her head. My arms are noodles. The dog girl paused for a second. That point goes to you. Alright, let's swap seats. Not wanting them to get sidetracked even more, Sophia carefully stood up from the middle bench of their boat and pointed at the spot where Chloe was sitting next to Maya. Okay. Nodding again, the two swapped places, and the fox girl, together with Steph, took care of maneuvering the boat through the canals inside the city. Am I right in guessing that you did that because you didn't want to be responsible for bumping into anything or anyone in those tight canals? No comment. The blonde just smiled at her. You sure are cheeky. Ehe. By the way, didn't we also want to buy a boat or two? While paddling through the canals, Ari got curious about that. For inside the domain to have around for projects. We absolutely will. Sophia gave her a thumbs up. Steph, you mentioned that the rental place told you where we can buy them? Yup. She nodded. I was thinking about heading there, too. I have no idea how to get there from here, though. The dog girl looked around. Well, there aren't many options to go, either, so I guess we just keep going and end up there eventually? Sounds like a plan to me. Having agreed on that, the group continued to travel through the city for a while longer. On their way, the girls also came across the lovely cafe again and decided to make a quick stop there. After all, they had been quite active during the day and more than earned themselves a sweet treat. Okay, I have to admit, that was pretty good. Back on the boat, Ari looked rather satisfied after having visited the cafe for the first time after the other couples had been there before the other day. The cake really was amazing. True. Anna agreed with her. The steakhouse we went instead before was amazing, too, though. But, as we'll have fish tonight, something sweet for a late lunch works. Something sweet always works. Maya's opinion differed a little. True. Chloe felt the same as the cat girl. Both always work. The sisters didn't understand why there was even any dispute over this. Fair. The others had nothing to add. After this conclusion, they rode through the canal for another half an hour before eventually arriving at a different corner of the city, which led into the lake at the back of it. Oh, I think that's the place. Steph pointed at the dock with the massive boats for sale sign above it. You think? Ari rolled her eyes. No need for the sass. The dog girl didn't appreciate it. Afterward, they tied their rental boat to the dock and went to look at the offerings available. There weren't overly fancy options to get, they all had roughly the same shape as the rented boat, but they were new, and it was possible to choose from a variety of colors. In the end, each couple got their own boat for future activities in the domain. Sophia and Maya got a green one, Anna and Ari went for a dark blue, and Steph and Chloe settled on a red one after a bit of back and forth. Chapter 140, Changing Directions. Having finished their fishing trip and relocated the massive sturgeon they caught into Sophia's domain, the group explored the lake and Gaiva for a little while longer before eventually going inside the city and to the boat store Chloe and Steph had heard about before. There, each couple got their very own boat for future activities in Sophia's domain. Sophia. Roughly 2 weeks had passed since they visited Gaiva, and the group had been on their way again for quite some time after the Tigers had a last meeting with the mayor to get everything ready for the official portal to the kingdom. While having breakfast in the cottage together, the blonde then was addressed in an excited tone by Aura. Yesh? Still munching on a toast with some jam on it, the girl in question tilted her head. Finish chewing first. Ari wasn't a fan of her table manners. Chewing a couple of more times, Sophia then swallowed everything with a big gulp before looking at the female wolf again. So, what can I do for you? I went to check on the portals to my pine forest earlier, and everything is still on fire. Ah. The blonde awkwardly scratched her cheek. Well, it can take weeks for especially disastrous forest fires to die out. It has been weeks. She didn't buy the excuse. Fair enough. There was nothing Sophia could say there, so she simply took another bite from her toast. You won't get to drop the subject that easily. Aura raised her voice. You know about everything that is going on in your domain, so there's no way you don't know what's up about my forest. I do, in fact, know. Taking a short glance at the jaguar, who was slowly shaking her head, the blonde made sure to properly swallow first before giving her reply. I was a little concerned about you not liking what is going on, though. Ari has created a colossal mess, after all. Why me? The girl in question got loud. You were the one who suggested flooding her forest with raw magic and igniting it, right? I did. She nodded. Because I learned it from you. There's no way you can blame me for that. I don't think you have seen me doing that in an area that is already rich in ambient magic. How am I supposed to know? I can't see magic. Well, you've created something beautiful, so I have to give you props in the end. I don't like any of this. Ari glared at her. Especially because I don't understand why I'm getting framed here. Long story short, Aura's pine tree was already overflowing with magic because she really went all out on growing those trees. Guilty as charged. The female wolf nodded while sounding smug. And so, releasing even more magic, combined with ordering it to burn down everything, went at odds with the present magic busy growing the forest. Right now, the area is at the perfect equilibrium of flaming inferno and rebuilding the trees. The forest hasn't stopped burning yet because the trees are being constantly regenerated by magic. You two, with Ari at the top, have managed to create an everlasting biome of fire. And no way. Let's go. The reactions of the jaguar and wolf differed significantly. You're not going to miss your pine forest? Sophia tilted her head. I thought you liked it so much. I loved it a whole lot. Aura nodded. It can be rebuilt in a different place, though. Bigger and better than ever. She wasn't bothered by it. Having helped Ari make an everlasting and perpetually burning flaming inferno is an amazing byproduct, as well. That got to be the coolest area in your domain right now, doesn't it? It sure is. Sophia smiled at her. Is it just me, or is Ari outdoing all of us? Steph sounded a little envious. The massive jungle right outside the door, Finn's relaxation forest, the rainforest, and now an everlasting inferno biome? Yes, our dear jaguar operates outside the current common sense of my domain. The blonde nodded in agreement. It's a little infuriating that she's that much ahead of us, but at the same time, I only have praise for her raising the bar of what was turning into the status quo around here. Would you all stop bullying me already? The cause of the common sense destruction inside Sophia's domain, Ari, glared at everyone involved. Laid it on a bit too thick, huh? The dog girl scratched her cheek. It's not that much fun being on that side, huh? Sophia, the girl who had been accused of the same many times, especially by the jaguar, stared back at her. Ah. She quickly averted her face. Those extreme things were an accident, okay? Same for me. The blonde didn't let her have it. How about you help me rebuild another pine forest in a different place to atone? Aura looked at the jaguar. Bigger and better than ever, I want to add. This time, with lots of attention paid to the general terrain. Of course. She gladly agreed to that. I look forward to the impending chaos. Hey. Ari glared at Sophia again before facing the female wolf. We'll take it easy, okay? Nice terrain, nice forest, nice smell. Yup. Aura nodded. That was my planned theme for it since the beginning, too. Though, I know who to ask if I want something spectacular in the future. Ugh, the jaguar hung her head. Once everyone finished teasing Ari and eating their breakfast, the group got ready to leave and return to the regular world to do some more traveling. By the way, it's been 2 weeks since we left the lake city. We have traveled about 1,000 kilometers since then, thanks to the portal skip, and visited 2 more cities and connected them with the capital. While walking through a small forest they came across, Sophia was thinking aloud about what happened lately. Even so, we've barely seen anything that left a lasting memory since then. Yeah. Steph thought so, too. The fluffies we met in the cities aside, the otherworld vibes are at an all-time low. It's little different from lots of places on Earth. Well, the central parts of the continent are rather, let's call it, unimpressive. Anna scratched her cheek. Sightseeing aside, that's supposed to be a good thing, though. After all, interesting terrain often equals dangerous terrain. It makes traveling a lot easier, too. Fair enough, but still way too boring. While the blonde understood the reasoning for it being an ideal place to live and be, it didn't mean she liked it. Aura. Fin. She then faced the wolves. Yes? The female one tilted her head. How well do you know this continent? You two have traveled a lot, right? I know enough that I think that you'll be bored for a good bit longer. Aura lightly shook her head. There's a whole lot of nothing in the central parts of the continent. Just as mentioned, convenient but boring. Not what I wanted to hear. We could change direction a little and head southeast for a while. The female wolf paused for a moment to think. It would probably take another week or two, and using the portal skips a whole lot, but it would lead to something interesting. Oh, I like the sound of that. Steph also seemed very interested. I don't think you do. Aura stared at the dog girl for a second. It's a desert we're talking about. Alright, I now know when I'll take my vacation days. Chloe immediately got loud. Not going to happen. I already did that with Fei, and I won't survive another day. The pink Arctic fox had a strong aversion to deserts. A desert, huh? Steph's expression turned a little awkward. I've never been to one, so that's quite exciting. I'm not a fan of the temperature, though. Just like her girlfriend, she much preferred the cold, after all. Okay, how about some nighttime exploring in the desert? It's supposed to get amazingly cold there once the sun's out. Right. Chloe clapped her hands. We have the domain now. Back when I was in a desert with Fei, there was no running away from daytime, so I hated it there. Well, I guess we'll have to split up if we go there. Sophia shook her head. Nighttime is sleepy time and not explore freezing desert time. Exactly. Maya, Anna, and Ari agreed with the blonde. None of them were a fan of the cold, after all. Afterward, heading to coastal regions would probably help to keep things interesting. Aura added some more details to her suggested route. The terrain gets a lot more diverse and interesting in those areas. It's more populated, too. That's true. Ari nodded. Most of the cities on King Menzer's list are also closer to the seas surrounding the continent. Oh. Sophia clapped her hands. Doesn't that sound like a plan already? It will also bring us closer to the demon continent, right? We need to reach the sea first for that. Yes, but also no. Aura lightly shook her head. We obviously have to cross the sea to get there, but not on this side of the beastfolk continent. We're currently headed in the opposite direction. We have to go to the sea west of the monster country for the best water route to the demon continent. Is that so? Sophia needed to let it sink in first. So, the plan would be something like this? We first head southeast for the desert and explore that for a bit. Afterward, we make our way to the coast from there and then turn westish and walk along the coast while visiting more cities until we're back to the monster country. Once there, we head for the sea once more to embark for the demon continent. That would be my suggestion. Aura agreed with her. Let's go. The blonde liked it. Someone needs to track directions, though, because I surely am not going to be able to. We know. Everyone nodded. Gore, she did it to herself, but she still didn't appreciate them nodding along so quickly. Oh, can we visit my hometown on the way back? Maya lightly clapped her hands to get Sophia's attention. It's close to the monster country, so it won't be much of a detour, if at all. I'd like to have a portal there for my parents so they can easily head back if they ever get tired of the capital. Of course. The blonde smiled at her. I would have done so regardless. Thank you. It's also on the king's list, so that works out doubly well. Having decided on a rough plan for their future travels, the group got going again and headed southeast to find the desert Aura mentioned.